Hey, I'm Raul, and this is Yunquan. So she's the CEO of Kapap Academy in Singapore. We're here in Singapore. We want to discuss one of the big news that came out of One FC, which is like Asia's largest MMA promotion. It's also based here in Singapore, and but one of the things that they released were, in their opinion, what were some of the most effective martial arts for MMA, and basically in the top four were Wushu Sanda, which is Chinese kickboxing, and wrestling. And at least in my opinion, I'm gonna ask you right now, but in my opinion, when you mention wrestling, I'm sure they're probably thinking like Olympic wrestling or even United States collegiate folk style wrestling, which are very formidable styles of wrestling. But wrestling should also include catch wrestling in that aspect, since both the Olympic and the folk style wrestling came from catch wrestling, and since catch wrestling also includes submissions, then that shouldn't necessarily be separate from like when you think of wrestling as a term that would include like not being pinned, and then also it should include submissions.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've always been an avid fan of catch wrestling because I think that, for anybody who wants to step into MMA, I think catch wrestling embodies everything that is related to grappling, right? From the moment you take someone down to finishing the fight by submission. So I I agree with you. Wrestling shouldn't be limited to just takedowns alone, like the case of, freestyle wrestling or collegiate wrestling. And then, at the end of the day, they don't really do anything on the ground aside from pins. So I think catch wrestling is one of the more versatile and formidable martial arts for MMA. So I think it totally deserves its place being one of the top four martial arts in the MMA scene.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's one of our challenges. Is like we have to definitely educate people that yes, especially like the folk style wrestling seems to be like, since it came really directly from the catch wrestling, it provides a really good wrestling foundation for anybody who wants to be good at actual wrestling or even good at catch wrestling. It'll definitely provide a good base, but because of rules and even time limits and lack of submissions, then it changes the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess our challenge would be to educate people that even though like the Olympics and those wrestlers they're all really good, but there's actually an original style that those styles that you like or you enjoy came from. That was actually freer of rules, right? So like, even time limits and stuff. So and it's actually in a way more exciting because we have the pin and the submission.
Totally.
So we definitely want to. That's our challenge, like to educate people about that.
Yeah, and I think also what we want to give the locals is also an understanding that, I know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Singapore is pretty popular, and there are a lot of grappling competitions that revolves around Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I think there's just so much more that catch wrestling can also offer. So it's just about exploring the different grappling forms, and just finding one that suits you. For now, catch wrestling is a little bit underexposed in Singapore still, and that's also our challenge to give people an option. And whether you want to up your skills in grappling, or you want to include some form of a submission-based system aside from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to help you win a match in MMA. Because at the end of the day, I find that if in MMA everybody is too focused on a particular style of fighting, it gets a little bit, boring to some extent, And at the end of the day, it's a question of who is able to master the techniques in that particular system. I think if you add in a different system altogether, it will help you get an advantage over your opponent who may be used to fighting people the same style as them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Where it's like if everyone's doing the same style, then it's like who then just can do the same style the best.
Yeah.
But if a style is lacking in certain techniques, if you can come with these different techniques that people haven't seen, then you'll definitely have a automatic advantage. And that's one of the advantages of catch wrestling.
Yeah. And I think also, talking about striking, kicking, the Wushu Sanda has been around for like long time in the world. It has a long history, and I think its recent debut in One Fight Championship and the recent champion that came out, being one of the belt holders for one fight championship. His background was in Wushu Sanda.
Yes.
And I think that speaks a lot about the style itself. As we all know, in terms of striking and kicking, we're all quite familiar with Muay Thai. But then again, now there's a different style that is taking over the MMA scene as well, and that's Wushu Sanda. So I think Wushu Sanda would make a good style to learn from in MMA.
Yeah, so for people who aren't familiar with Wushu Sanda, then it goes by a shorter name, just like Sanda,
Yeah.
right? So it is Chinese kickboxing. So it's a lot like Muay Thai, but with much more sophisticated takedowns and slams. And a lot of takedown defense. So that's why I think Wushu Sanda plus wrestling is actually one of the better combinations, where Sanda already has like wrestling in it, and so they do a lot of stand-up wrestling and plus the defense from being taken down. So it's already going to give you an advantage, or it's already kind of like creating that bridge between the striking and the wrestling. So I think that's one of the reasons why, like in ONE FC, it's become undeniable that it's a really formidable, great style and effective style, because they have the champion from the Philippines. I believe his name is Edward Foyalang.
Yeah.
He's beat everyone they put up against him, and he was a world Sanda champion. So there is world competition in this. I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that. It is very well founded. That you have people who are competing to represent their countries in world competition for Sanda. So it is a very serious thing. I think just maybe in some countries it's not so well known.
Yeah.
But when you put it to the test in professional MMA, they're winning. Especially here in Southeast Asia in ONE FC, they're being put to the test and they're winning. And actually, even in UFC, there was a fighter from China that he knocked out like one of the top amateur wrestlers from one of our top universities in the United States. So he was able to fend him off and then use his striking to knock him out. So it's being shown in UFC as well.
Yeah. And I think also, for Chinese martial arts, I mean, it has gotten a bad name, in recent years, with all the kind of unrealistic forms of training and stuff like that. But I think with Wushu Sanda, I think we're slowly giving people, the view that there is practicality in the style. There is, real stuff you can learn from Wushu Sanda. So not everything that you see, that comes to Chinese martial. When Chinese martial comes to your mind, it's not like, oh, it's all bullshit and stuff like that. There is good deal in it. There's good value in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to show people too.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for taking a few minutes to talk with me about this.
problem.
And thank you for watching.
Thank you.